Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And today we're talking about Friendship, which stars Tim Robinson, who is a sort of slightly recent discovery of mine. I've never watched his sketch show, I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, it's called. It's on Netflix. I've never watched whole episodes of it, but I've seen sketches from it, and I really like his energy. And so I was interested to see this, which from the trailers looked like one of these... It looks a little bit like The Cable Guy, like a guy who isn't very socially skilled, gets very attached to another guy that he meets and is desperate to be his friend and is quite clingy. It's a little bit like that, but not entirely. The friend who he gets attached to is played by Paul Rudd. Tim Robinson is also married to Kate Mara. So at the start of the film, we see them in a support group. Kate Mara is 12 months recovered from cancer, and he is not great at supporting her. You know, he kind of says, like, you know, the cancer's not coming back. But he says it in a way that's like, he doesn't... It's the kind of thing that he thinks you're supposed to say to support a cancer survivor.
Yes.
This doesn't really work. Their marriage is not doing great. And this neighbour moves in, played by Paul Rudd. He winds up going around there to take a package that's delivered to the wrong house. And he sees how cool this guy is. You know, Paul Rudd kind of invites him in. And he sees that, you know, he gets deliveries of like 400,000-year-old fossils that are really cool and come with a story. He's in a band, he plays guitar, he's on the TV, he's an evening weatherman. And the film kind of starts off as a comic thing about how hard it is for adult men to make friends, really. And then it starts going in weird directions. Most of the film, I really didn't start... Yeah, I thought at the start, I know where this is going. And then I started to not see where it was going. I think it's a really stressy film. It will really stress you out. If you're someone who's susceptible to stress, it'll probably cause you problems. But I did have a really good time.
I loved it. I loved it without thinking that it's quite great. So I loved it because it made me laugh. You know, I thought it was like brilliantly funny. It had all these great moments, comic moments, actually. I thought it was wonderful at achieving those laughs. And Robinson is wonderful because he's got this kind of every guy persona, right? You know, but also he's a fumbler and messes everything up. Though you always wonder, well, he can't be that much of a fumbler. I mean, you know, he's got quite a good job. He's been married, right? So I think the film, to me, is not a great film because as a coherent piece because it brings up all these questions that it doesn't answer. I mean, how could he be such a putz if he's married to this wonderful woman for 20 years? Or how? Yeah, they have a 16-year-old son together. They've been moving along together. So, you know, how can he be so bad and so incompetent and so insensitive, right? And still have this job, have this house, have this wife, right? So it's not believable in that sense to me, right? But I thought what was original about it was kind of this longing for friendship, right? And that it's treated as a heterosexual male to heterosexual male type of thing. Because it's kind of like a one-sided love affair that ends up being complicitous. Yeah, Paul Rudd winks at him at the end, right? So it's open, but it ends on a complicitous note. Yeah, and it's not sexual. Yeah, it's just really about this longing for friendship, for trust, for someone to share your interests with, and so on.
And then the kind of inadequacy of the men to forge that friendship, or at least this one particular man. I mean, the other man, the Paul Rudd character, is quite competent with his friends that he already has, and it appears he's quite competent at integrating Tim Robinson until Tim Robinson starts making social mistakes and screwing it up, and then Paul Rudd is very competent at asking him to not return. You know, so he is kind of socially sort of skilled. Yeah. Talking about how funny it is. I mean, we saw this in The Mockingbird. There was an audience of maybe 10 people. Yes. It's quite a tight little room. You know, it's not as big as the Cineworld screens. And this got huge laughs from everyone. I mean, there were people at the back. I didn't like see what they looked like or anything, but they were really, really with this film. Yes. You could hear it in their laughter. And everyone else was, laughing quite a lot at various points, including us. And I thought, this is laughter that we did not hear at all in The Naked Gun.
Yeah.
at all. Not from anyone else in the audience either. I mean, that was a pretty dead audience. Like, no one was really responding to it. You, as you said in that podcast, you responded more than anyone.
Yes.
This was getting big laughs. It was setting up interesting comic situations, or it was subverting your expectations in funny, interesting ways. I mean, I was laughing just at the way that Tim Robinson moves.
Yes.
The way he walks. He has a clompy, odd walk. He just makes that movement just sort of funny.
Yes.
If you're with, I mean, you might not notice, you might not think about it. I picked up on it. I picked up on this guy moves in just a weird, funny, clunky way. You know, the thing right at the start when he's in his office and he fills coffee right up to the brim.
Yes.
This is a joke in the first 2 or 3 minutes.
Yes.
And immediately, and like everyone's done that, right? Everyone's filled up a mug that much and then tried to move very slowly. And like you get what he's doing. He's made things deliberately difficult for himself in a stupid way. Maybe not deliberately. Actually, I have to go back and see if it was a mistake. But he's going with it anyway.
Yes.
And then he's trying to sip it, and it was just like the audience was just in peals of laughter throughout that whole segment. And we had no context to anything. It's just really silly, funny, well acted, slapsticky visual humour.
And recognisable, understandable, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is a great credit to the type of comedy he does, because I think also he does very subtle things with his facial expressions, as a response to social situations.
Yes.
Right? Where you see one register, then another register which contradicts the previous one, then going back to the first one, like as if he's in doubt. And kind of you see all those moves, and it really is just a little movement of the eye, and he's registering all these changes in perception, right? So I think, he's capable of doing something that Liam Neeson isn't.
Well, yes. And actually it's interesting, because one of the things I was complaining about in The Naked Gun was the editing, and how going to all these close-ups and back and forth really screws up the way those scenes should be played. Well, this is edited a little bit like that. I mean, I don't think it's as hyperactive as I maybe felt that was, but this is edited in, shot reverse shots and things. But those close-ups that that you get of Tim Robinson give you access to those facial tics. He's using them, right? Whereas actually in The Naked Gun they didn't do anything.
Yes.
But here they give you the joke, right? You wouldn't see that facial expression were it not for the close-up, were it not for the shot reverse shot.
Yes.
So they make it work. They make it make sense here.
I liked it also because it's a comedy about ordinary people, right? So in a way, he's just someone who works in a marketing company, isn't he? Right? Whose big claim to fame is that he got his own office, right? He negotiated his own office.
Yeah, and he can eat whatever he wants there.
Yes. And, the guy he aspires to be, the guy who he thinks is so dazzlingly glamorous, is just, the evening weatherman at the local station, right?
Yeah, he didn't even think to ask for a promotion to Monday, to mornings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not much to aspire to. And they live, in the Midwest, in this small town, and So I think kind of it's legible in a way that so much of American comedy hasn't been, right? Because it's just about, a lonely middle-aged man kind of wanting to have a buddy, right? That's all, right? And I think the film makes that emotionally comprehensible, right?
Yeah.
And also the humor comes out of the one-sidedness of it, the neediness, the way that he kind of constantly trips himself up, right? In ways that are kind of quite believable. There's like wonderful slapstick that is beautifully timed, like the bit where he breaks the window. He doesn't see that there's a window, and then he walks through it. He pretends that nothing happens, and the other people are stunned, and then about 2 or 3 or 4 seconds later, the glass falls, right? And the timing of the glass falling is another laugh, right? And so I think the film is attuned to comedy in a way that The Naked Gun wasn't.
Absolutely. And the line he delivers after that, and the way he delivers it, and the way the shot's set up. I mean, everything about that works really, really, really well. I loved the kind of adventures into surrealism, which were things that I was not expecting. When he goes on a drug trip, and he wants.
That was so funny.
He wants the strongest thing they have. He asks for ayahuasca, and the guy doesn't have it. But what he does have is a toad that you lick the back of it. It releases toxins, and the toxins get you super high, and you'll be gone. And the guy's, I'll be back in an hour and everything. And the trip that he has is of the utmost banality. He goes to Subway, he orders a sandwich, he doesn't even get his sandwich before he wakes up, and he's like, he was supposed to be gone for 4 months in his head, and he was there for about a minute, and you know, you're expecting like the worst trip, right? Like it's completely set up for you. I don't think anyone in the audience was expecting anything other than huge weirdness when that started, and then because I think you could hear it in everyone's laughter that was it, and everyone got it at the same point. Like fucking hell, like.
But the humor, well, I think that scene, you know, it has layers of humor. The first thing is he's got to lick the toad's ass.
Well, the back.
Yes, the back.
Well, because it's a real thing, these toads with you know, hallucinogenic backs.
Yeah, well,
I didn't take it as its arse.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you're meant to, really, because
Okay.
there's a point made of that. So I think every time the frog came close, I was like, I laughed.
Okay.
But then the other thing that's funny is that, of course, his trip is to find his previous best friend, now his enemy, working at a Subway, right? And then, you know, that it still has the friendship element because the guy working at the Subway, or his best friend, gone from weatherman, you know, to now working at a Subway, knows his order inside out and just serving it to him, right? And then, of course, the other laugh, which comes after that, is that he's not even conscious of that interpretation. Yeah, that kind of, i.e., his fantasy, his great trip has been to see his rival brought low, but still his friend, and he doesn't interpret it as anything other than, what was that about? Right? So you know, so there's layers, of laughter and meaning in that whole thing that I thought was just brilliant.
And fantasy is a good word, actually, because I was thinking one thing that I like about him is that he's a fantasist.
Yes.
In the again, those kind of banal ways where you imagine how much better an interaction could have gone, or you know, he sees Paul Rudd's performing on stage in his band, and then he imagines himself as the drummer.
Yes.
You know, and I've had those kind of like mini fantasies before. It's like, what if I played for Birmingham City, shit like that. You know, like what if I was that guy. And that's super relatable, I think, probably to a lot of people. I don't think it's just me.
I think the whole thing is relatable. And I think what also comes across is that he's someone who kind of completely lacks self-worth. Yeah, because again, you know, he comes across as dorky, but also kind of powerful, completely socially inept, but kind of socially authoritative in a way. He's not afraid to pick a fight.
No.
Right? You know, so he can be quite assertive in those ways. Like, so on the one hand, he's kind of sure of himself in some ways, right? And kind of completely not realizing his self-worth in other ways, right? And, you know, and this thing of him being socially incompetent, being excluded by other people, being bullied, being the victim of other people's practical jokes, right? Kind of, you know, that's I think very beautifully revealed in a way, and there's a kind of a little bit of a sense of hurt when he realizes that, right?
Yeah.
So I loved it. I think it's kind of rare to see a film, you know, that is on the one hand a comedy, but on the other hand, it's reeling with real small scale social issues. That are also quite widespread, because I imagine, you know, this feeling of loneliness, of not being able to meet a friend past a certain age, you know, it's probably like a sociological phenomenon. I imagine
the male loneliness epidemic.
Exactly. You know, I can't imagine many divorced men, kind of, you know, having tons of friends. It's usually the women who take care of the social aspect of, you know, heterosexual relationships. So I thought in those ways it was, you know, really quite wonderful. What I didn't like about it was that it didn't trust that aspect more. I would have liked to have seen better resolution to those problems, particularly in relation to his wife, and his child. You know, some kind of learning aspects. Those things, it's like they're raised and then they're kind of dropped, really.
We're given the kind of promise of potential kind of reconciliation of the family at the end, but it is left with that, and then the film goes off to Paul Rudd's house once more.
And the film hints at things that it then doesn't quite reveal or cover. So, for example, at the beginning of the film, it's hinted that his wife is having an affair with someone else.
Well, she's reconnecting with an old flame.
Exactly. Yeah, she's reconnecting with an old flame. He's not welcome. She can't skip that date. Right? It's very much she's looking. Yeah. So, and I think in a film, when you get something like that, really the implication is she's having an affair, right? Like, but that's not developed, and she leaves them ostensibly because of what he did to her, but really there's something else, and it's never resolved. Yeah. So, and I think that's a mistake in a film of this type. Yeah. Those things need to be. I mean, you could leave them open, but nonetheless, you must have an understanding of processes, even if not resolutions, right? Like, the resolution, the ending could be open. Yeah, but you need to see steps. So
I didn't take it as an affair, I must say. I mean, I took it at face value that she was seeing an old flame, and the potential for an affair to develop was there. But I did think that had she been having an affair, unless she is that checked out from the relationship, which is a possible interpretation, she would be hiding it more.
Okay, well, let me tell you why I think she's having an affair. The film begins with, I haven't had an orgasm. And the guy saying, my orgasms have just been fantastic. Right? Like, or fine, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if she's been having an affair, shouldn't she be having orgasms with the other fella?
Well, maybe, but the thing is, it starts with you being told that she's sexually unsatisfied.
Yeah.
Right? Then she's seeing this old flame. She can't break the date. The old flame is the most important thing to her.
Yeah.
So it suggests an affair, and she's been seeing him.
Well, that's why I say it suggests an incipient affair, as opposed to an in-progress, like,
okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, certainly the film doesn't spell it out for you. It doesn't tell you, but it certainly suggests that they're having an affair.
Okay.
Right? And, I think the divorce, and so on, is all kind of, part of that. But anyway, you're right that the film doesn't really, it drops those things, so you never really find out, if anything happened, or if that was why the relationship comes to a halt, temporary or not. Yeah, the film doesn't resolve those things very well. But on the other hand, the main relationship in the film that you are told about is really between the two men. Actually, not even between the two men. Yeah, his wishes for the Paul Rudd character. Right?
Yeah. One thing that I think Tim Robinson is really good at is expressing a kind of mad, impotent rage. And he does that a couple of times here. I'm thinking particularly of when the wife has been returned to them after having gone missing, and they have the party, and he just sort of winds up sitting at his drum kit in the garage. The drum kit which he's bought because, he wanted to... he was inspired by Paul Rudd's character, maybe wanted to impress him, wanted to jam with him, just thinks he's cool and everything. And then it's all gone badly. So he sat there at this drum kit, which he's hardly played, and the other fella comes in and winds up kind of needling him about, you just abandoned your wife. And I was like, how could you possibly do that? And it's the way that he expresses his rage. I mean, Jen sort of whispered to me, like, he's going to fucking kill him. Like, you did kind of feel like something might really explode in this film. Like, tension might raise to the point where, and obviously you do end up with a gunshot, although the gunshot is not deliberate. But, the film gets you to that point of thinking what might happen. At this point, he doesn't attack him, but he just sits behind his drum kit going, Aah! And it's a kind of rage that really makes me laugh because it's that thing of, like, someone being really small in frame and being surrounded by kind of nothing except just their own impotence and fury. He's very good at expressing that kind of thing. I find it very funny when he does it. In the sketches that I've seen from his sketch show, I see the same thing. And the thing I like about his character there is how he's a character who will, like, have big ideas about things that could go very well in his life. Again, it's a kind of fantasy thing. So there's a sketch, I think it's called The Taxi Cab Crooner, where he's driving a cab and he's doing this kind of weird gesture with his fingers every now and again as like another car kind of goes by them, and the guy who's sitting in the back of his cab is like, what are you doing? And as he does it, he's like really mad that the person in the other car isn't appreciating it, and then they're not in the right place, they moved on. And what you realise is that he's got up on his window, he's got like decals pasted on of like a hat and a cigar. And if you're lined up just right, then it looks like he's wearing the hat and he's like playing with the cigar, like Groucho Marx. And he thinks this is like a big, great idea. And he's going like, there's got to be a way to make money off this. And the madness of the idea and the kind of madness of his ambition for it, and then the madness of his fury when it's not going the way he thinks it should be going, is this wild combination that really makes me laugh. And it's very specific. It's a very specific energy to him. I haven't really seen that in the same way somewhere else, and he carries some of that here.
But that's built into the film as well, because if you remember, like, I mean, there's an irony about this guy working in marketing, public relations. Yeah. I mean, designing campaigns for how political candidates should be perceived, to create images for them, when he is so tone deaf about everything that happens in his life with relation to the public sphere, right? How he talks to friends, he invites them over, kicks them out of the house like in 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, so he's kind of the combination of him being a fumbler, but him also being someone who designs the perception of the world for others, is, you know, certainly that must have been built into the film as kind of, you know, something to make you think about, right?
Yeah.
Because he is someone who is totally, I think, very well-meaning, and there's an innocence about him, right? I think that's why that character is so interesting, because there's an innocence about him. He's very well-meaning, right? On the other hand, he's completely self-involved and tone-deaf, and his self-involvement is set out at the beginning with that phrase, you know, my orgasms have just been fine, right? Like, you know, so his wife not being able to have orgasms because of the way that the cancer might have affected their sex life, all of a sudden becomes an issue for him. It's about his masculinity and whatever. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the interesting things about the film. Kind of that it is an everyman, but it's a particular kind of everyman. He's innocent, but also powerful.
And he does ultimately kind of make a friend at the end of all this, despite everything that he's gone through with Paul Rudd, and Paul Rudd is really kind of sick and tired of him at points. I think it comes down to that shared secret that they have, which has a really masculine component to it, which is that he knows that Paul Rudd wears a wig and has a really significant bald patch that he is desperate for other people not to know about. I mean, it's the oldest you've ever seen Paul Rudd look.
Yeah,
because famously the man doesn't age.
Yeah, well, he's aged here.
But when it all goes off with the gun, he's in a weird place and he's kind of threatening them and then taking it easy, and then the gun goes off and everyone ducks, and he sees that Paul Rudd no longer has his wig, and so he threatens everyone. You've got to stay down. Everyone stay down. Yeah. Don't raise your heads above anything. And he's like looking at Paul Rudd going, get your wig back on quickly. And at the end, like that's why that wink comes, right? Underneath all of this, we share a little secret together.
They
and it's
care
just
about each other and trust each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I loved all of that. Though, as I said, kind of thematically and narratively, it's a bit uneven. But it's brilliant about the laughs, and it is about something real that is relatable. So I loved all of that. What I didn't like, aside from it not being textured in together as well as I would have liked, is how ugly it looks. I mean, there's no reason why a comedy should look this banal, this ugly.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I felt I could have shot it.
I don't know if I agree with that, although I do know what you're responding to.
It has no design.
Well, I don't think that it does. I mean, I think it's really important, for instance, that Tim Robinson's character is always wearing shades of brown. Really dour, brown, beige, tan stuff that has no life in it, no excitement in it. He gets all... I mean, there's a focus on the costume, actually, because there's that thing about how he gets all of his clothes from the same shop and how their new, fall collection looks amazing, and it's going to be the same shit that he's wearing
okay.
now.
Well, sure.
You see what I mean? Elements like that, because I think it does then go. It has elements of visual flair. If
it has elements of visual flair, I miss.
Well, when you go into the tunnels, and particularly when he's getting himself lost in the tunnels, it starts to pick up grainy footage, shaky cam stuff. With a single light source. It's not doing the same old things it's always doing.
I thought those were quite banal. So yes to all that you're saying, but really that is the minimum that you could do visually. I mean, for example, there was no play on any of the angles, or no camera tilts or making things seem larger or scarier or whatever. It was like the camera was still head on a tunnel. So of course you're getting a tunnel and a single light source, right? And they're moving through it. Yeah. So, but that really is, I think, the minimum of what could be achieved visually in a scene like that.
Well, maybe so, but I think it's a little harsh to say there's no design. It's not as visually expressive as it might be, and it's not for the most part making jokes out of it the way it looks.
Yes.
But I think it knows. I think it has a sense that we've already kind of mentioned. I think it has a sense of how to use the camera to get a joke, or to show you something in a way that will allow a joke to be expressed. That,
Sure.
for instance, The Naked Gun did not. I don't think you actually.
I agree with that. I agree with that, but I still think, that there's no excuse for, a film, particularly a comedy, to be so visually, and not even ugly is the wrong word. It really is just banal. Like, considering what could be done. I mean, in Bologna this year, I saw Frank Tashlin, Artists and Models, which is, a Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin film is not, anything particularly special, but the direction makes it special. It's got like so many kind of brilliant visual things, color, kind of imagery, right? It's gorgeous to look at and funny with its look, right? And this is not gorgeous to look at, and it's very rarely funny with its look.
Well, I will agree with you that it could be doing more, for sure. But I wouldn't completely write it off. But I know what you mean. We should mention that the film is written and directed by this guy, Andrew DeYoung, name I didn't know, a name that doesn't have a blue underline on Wikipedia. So,
It's a first-time director.
This guy is a first-time director. I think the role of Craig, it's the guy's name, was written specifically for Tim Robinson, and you can kind of tell that, right?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's playing to all of his strengths and the persona that he has. But yeah, I don't know very much about this guy, and I'll be interested to see what else he does, because this made me laugh a lot. This made a lot of people laugh a lot.
I mean,
and it's not just a very good comedy. It's also doing these other things with it. It means to get you stressed out. It means to make you kind of socially uneasy and that kind of thing.
It's a weird thing, because I think what I was about to say, and I think it's true. So, and maybe I need to unpack it. I'm not sure, right? But I think it's a comedy, in the sense that it's full of laughs and they work, and I really appreciate them, because you can't sneer at a laugh, and this has a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But also I think it's a serious comedy, and that's even more of an achievement, that it's kind of, making social issues and personal issues, this kind of loneliness, this desperation for a friend, and it's making funny things that actually hurt. And I think that's, to me, its greatest achievement, and it's not a minor achievement. Do
you remember that film Journeyman, which we saw? It was British, and it's written and directed by Paddy Considine, who stars in it as a boxer, and he suffers a really bad injury in a fight and becomes kind of mentally impaired from it. And I remember how unusual, and I think what a true observation I thought it was, to see his friends abandon him. His friends, who are kind of, to some extent, as I recall it, they were kind of hangers-on a little bit, because he was kind of, he had some kind of level of hype around him, maybe. They just abandoned him, and then there's that one point where his wife, who's played by Jodie Whittaker, sees one of them in like a car park, and they're both there, and the guy kind of has this really awkward, bad interaction with Paddy Considine. He does not know how to handle this. The guy has changed, and she fucking kicks off at him, and she's like, "What? This has all been left to me. Why are you so bad at this? Why don't you come and fucking see him?" Just like, and I think this film sort of, it reminded me of that. It reminded me of that impotence, and it was in that film. It was kind of willful impotence. So these guys were like, the implication essentially was that they didn't know how to handle this, but they also didn't care to even try. They were much more comfortable leaving him to his wife and his carers and that sort of thing. And this kind of reminded me of that, of like this. It's not just specific to Tim Robinson's character that he thinks like this, although of course it's heightened and it's made surreal and so on. It's a real true thing that men need to address about themselves.
Yes. Well, yeah. Though I also look at it on the other side, right? Like, I mean, I think people need to make a bit more of an effort. Yes. You have to give something to your friends as well. Yeah, so obviously kind of if there are periods in your life which are harder and you expect your friends to hang around for those as well. Yeah, but it can't be like that always, really. I mean, friendship is a mutual, thing. It can end when it starts being one-sided for whatever reasons they are. Yeah. Really. So, which, don't get me wrong. Yeah, like I also feel that it comes with responsibilities. That kind of you do need to be there for your friends. Yeah, but I think it's unreasonable to expect them to be there forever without getting something in return.
Maybe so.
Yeah, and I don't mean material or financial, but kind of. There's also, you're friends with somebody because they make you feel good. You share things, or you share interests, or the conversation makes you laugh, or whatever. Right. I also don't think it's unreasonable to expect it to end when those things end. Yeah,
maybe so. Although it did seem harsh in that film because he got punched in the head too hard, and then they abandoned him.
Yes.
Anyway,
I highly recommend this film. I thought it was a revelation. I had no idea what it was. I kind of went to it just because you wanted to go to it, and I was really delighted to see it.
Yeah, I was very glad it was so funny. I was very glad that Tim Robinson works on a cinema screen, because he works on a TV screen, and you're never sure how that transition will work out. And I think he works.
He works. He's very subtle too. And it was a pleasure to see Paul Rudd in this role. And actually, I think it also opens it up. So you were saying it's the first time really that you see Paul Rudd old, and I think it's true for me anyway. And to me, this role is something that you can imagine him now having, a star career on the same level he's had until now, which is not quite starry, but starry enough, right? For the next 20 years, really. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need to look young to have, a continued career. So, and I think this film is proof of that. It opens up those doors.
Well, that's lucky. Because he is going to get old one day.
Yes. Well, he's old now. He's old in this film, I think.
Anyway,
Thank you very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcast, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.